In today's video, I am going to be breaking down the defensive rotations on man-to-man defense that you definitely need to know as a player, but also as a coach. There's a lot of mistakes that happen, and I hope that this can help your players, especially if you can share it with them. Anyways, let's get down, let's check this out, but really quickly, if you want a deadly defense, check out my deadly defensive strategies that are down in the description below, and definitely go check out that book. And if you like the idea of me drawing on this app, it's called Playbook, and you can get 10% off down in the description below as well. So generally speaking, how man-to-man defense is set up is if you are on ball, you are literally on ball. If you are one pass away, then you are one big step away. And if you are two passes away, you are two big steps away. And obviously this goes for the same for the other side of the court as well. Now, if the ball gets swung over to this right side, now player 4 is man on ball. Player 1 needs to cover the gap, but can only be one step away. Player 3 needs to cover the gap, but again, also needs to be one step away. The gap is somewhere between this man who has the ball and your man as well. That way, if player 4 drives, at least you can get a hand in before you recover back to your man. On the off-ball side, player 5 will move in because now he is not just one step away, but now he is two passes away, which means that he is two steps away. And then player 2, because he is 1, 2, and 3 passes away, he needs to be 3 steps away. Now, depending on how you want to play help defense, you can have him on this side of the key, or you can have him cover the middle of the key. It is totally up to you. Now, this is why I disagree with leagues saying you're not allowed to play zone. Because in reality, man-to-man, if you do it properly, will look like a zone. If player 4 passes to player 3, player 3 is man on, and ideally, unless you're playing a different type of defense, usually these days you're forcing baseline. So player 3 is going to be really covering this side. Meanwhile, player 4 needs to be one big step away from his man, but in the gap. Player 1 needs to be now two big steps away. And being two big steps away generally means right about there. And then player 2, he could be really covering on this side. Some coaches will want you to cover this side like this so that you're already there for the trap. However, you can sit there in the middle of the key and player 5 needs to start rotating down, because if player 3 was to drive, player 3's defender is going to be forcing him into a trap with player 2. And because he's now in this trap, player 5 needs to drop. Player 1 needs to move over, because now, essentially what's happening, because player 1 is still one pass away, he should be in deny. We don't want player 4 getting this ball. Player 5 needs to be watching the baseline. He needs to be watching here, but he also needs to be watching the 45 cut. Player 1 needs to be watching the 45 cut, but also watching the point cut. And these two players are now essentially zoned up, guarding 3 guys. If there is a kick-out pass and it makes it to player 5, just as an example, we would have player 1 covering, or you can have it set up because player 5 was the big man, and we obviously have a big man up top. He can close out. Player 1 closes out here, that's called an X out, and then player 2 covers top, or player 3 covers top, depending on how you want to have these rotations move. Different coaches have different rotations. A lot of coaches, however, will just say player 1 is the closest, he needs to get there, player 5 needs to pop out, and these guys still close out here. But in reality, if player 5 is not the greatest of shooters, we can just contest with player 5, and player 1 can then X out and go to player 2. Now, let's say we're in this situation, and player 5 drives down middle. Well, now player 5 is driving down middle. We don't want any players to go down middle. This is really bad. So player 3 needs to get his hand in there to try and disrupt it all. If he doesn't, player 4 needs to start dropping, because player 2 needs to step up to take the charge and player 4 needs to drop. Player 3 needs to move over. Now he's covering 2 players at once. It is all about trying to close off the key to any drives. And when it comes to baseline drives, it needs to be a trap here or a trap here. And if it comes to a middle drive, which is a no-no, this is not what you want, then you need to really try and wall up and stop any more penetration into the key on the court, because we don't want the ball in here. Now let's say player 5 kicks the ball out to 1. We need to X out. Personally, I would have players go like this, because player 4 is already guarding 3 in this case. So the only man wide open is player 4 blue, and player 2, because he's already doubling a big man and there's already a big man on him, why force the other guy out? Player 2 guards 4. Now we are filling out. Defense is back to essentially normal, and their offense has been now busted. Now let's say, for example, player 4 drives baseline, because player 2 would have been forcing him baseline. When player 4 drives, this is not a good idea to have player 4 red pop out and try to take that charge or double team. The reason why this is a bad idea is because this pass is wide open, and this will be 100% a wide open 3-point shot. So when player 4 drives from the wing, player 4 red, he needs to stay and deny on player 3. Player 3 may try and lift. That's a possibility. You could always have player 4 get his hand in there just to disrupt it so that he can get his hand in and then return. That's totally okay. But now player 1 needs to get here because he's from help side. He needs to cut that off and trap or double team or take the charge. And the one thing that every player forgets to do, and many coaches don't teach anymore, at least up here in Canada, what I've seen, is this drop. Because what will happen is player 2 can cut baseline, and if player 2 cuts baseline and there's no drop, that's a wide open pass. Lob pass for a dunk, bounce pass, whatever. If player 5 drops, and the coach has taught this really good, and they start dropping, the one thing that I see less of these days is the next rotation. This rotation, I'm not too sure if it's not being taught, but what I do see is this not happening. So a lot of the times that 45 cut is absolutely wide open and can lead to a dunk or a layup or a floater, which means that more players need to make this drop here as well as here, because then this cuts off any of the driving lanes or cutting lanes. Even if player 1 was to cut, now player 3 can cut off that cutter. Player 5 just lifts a bit so that he can still be in position to cut off any passes or cuts by players 5 or 2. Basketball gets a rap for being a non-contact sport, but if player 1 is cutting, player 3 needs to get in front of him, get his feet planted, and he could even take a charge if he wanted, but he needs to redirect that player. I hope that this breakdown helps your team win more games. Make sure to go check out my deadly defensive strategies that are down in the description below, and I will see you guys again in my next video. Hit that like button and subscribe.